Welcome back to Whence, a Freemasonic podcast featuring research papers and discussions related to Freemasonry. I'm your host, Brother Robert Johnson. So last week we had a patriotic piece which was leading up to Memorial Day. This being the Memorial Day episode, I figured we could continue the patriotism this week. So we have a good piece for you here in just a bit. First, I want to say thanks to everyone for listening and sharing. I do this show for you guys and to bring men into the fraternity for the right reasons. I believe we have brought a good number of men into the fraternity, so the show seems to be working. And that's all thanks to you guys, like I said, for listening and continuing to share the show with everybody. Thanks to everyone who wished my wife and I a happy anniversary a couple weeks ago. We really appreciate that very much. Off the bat, I need to thank Brother Whence for having me on his show weekly, in most cases, on the Winding Stairs podcast. I appreciate the time that you give me to give out some Masonic conspiracy and be a part of what you're doing. It's very important work. Also, Brother Robert Lewis, a big thanks to you for having me on your show as well. I gotta say to everyone listening, if you haven't had a chance to check out the Far From Centered podcast or the Winding Stairs, check them both out. They are great shows. Both hosted by brothers, in fact. Robert Lewis's show, the Far From Centered podcast, is not a Masonic show, but being a Freemason, he wanted to put a little something Masonic in it, so he does have me on the show to give a famous Freemason segment. Rob Lewis is a great writer and a host, and I am also very proud to be a part of what he's doing as well. So thanks to those guys, and please, again, if you have a minute, check out those podcasts, The Winding Stairs and Far From Centered. Follow Juan Sepulveda on Twitter at WindingStairs33 and Rob Lewis on Twitter at Far From Centered. And if you have a second, also rate those shows on iTunes. Show some love over there. I have to say congratulations to Todd E. Creason, the original member and founder of the Midnight Freemasons, author and past master. He made it onto the famous Freemasons list on Wikipedia. So the plan is one episode soon. I plan on having not a famous Freemason segment, but a famous Freemason interview. So be looking for that soon. Now on to this week's piece, another somewhat patriotic piece, which was a short talk bulletin, which is the volume 91 of February 2013, number 2. Its title is Washington's Inaugural Bible, A New Theory. Washington's Inaugural Bible, A New Theory, by Pierce A. Vaughn. The United States recently witnessed the oath of office by a President of the United States. In Freemasonry, we still look back at that very first presidential oath of office by Brother George Washington on a Bible borrowed from a nearby lodge. Or did something else actually happen? Here is a theory by someone who has been very close to the Washington story for years. Very worshipful Brother Vaughn is the current master of St. John's Lodge No. 1 of the Grand Lodge of New York and the Grand King of the Grand Chapter of Royal Arch Masons, State of New York. A Mason for more than 33 years, he has belonged to the Masonic bodies in England, France, Belgium, Canada, and the United States. He settled in the New York area 20 years ago and has been very active in Masonry in many Masonic bodies in New York and New Jersey, earning the Knight of the York Cross of Honor and the 33rd degree of the Northern Masonic jurisdiction of the Scottish Rite. He is also a bishop in an independent Catholic church and possesses a master's degree in divinity from Sophia School of Divinity, as well as a master's in experimental psychology from Oxford University and an MBA from the Cranfield University of England. In the Masonic world, he is known for his lectures on all aspects of Freemasonry, from the historic to the esoteric and symbolic. He has lectured across the United States, Canada, England, New Zealand, France, and Romania. With the fever of the presidential inauguration only just passed, it is an appropriate time to share some thoughts I have been developing about the original use of the St. John's Lodge Bible in the inauguration of the President and Brother George Washington. While none of us were present, and therefore anything I say can be conjecture, I feel that I am perhaps in a better position than many to put forward some new, perhaps radical theories. I am the current master of St. John's Lodge No. 1, which owns the Bible. I joined St. John's Lodge as a Mason of some 12 years standing from England, and first served as master in 1998. In my 20 years as a member of St. John's Lodge, I have traveled the country acting as one of the Bible's guardians. and giving many talks on its history. Like all apprentices, I learned the history of the Bible from my predecessors and initially never thought to question their stories. I will not repeat them at length. There is already an excellent MSA Short Talk Bulletin, September of 2001, in circulation on the Bible, and its contents are no less valid than my theories. In a nutshell, officials had forgotten a Bible at the first inauguration ceremony. Jacob Morton, master of our lodge and equerry to Washington, ran down the road to get it. It was opened at random, and Washington laid his hand upon it to take his oath, whereupon Chancellor Robert R. Livingston, who was also Grand Master of the Masons of New York, turned down the corner of the page to preserve it for posterity. Yet the story of the inauguration simply didn't make sense to me. Why would they forget the Bible at an event for which they had laid out every other detail, even down to the number of bales of hay that were needed for the horses? One of our members located a pamphlet from that time, and this revealed that, far from the romantic notion that Washington had sailed across the Hudson River and gone straight to Federal Hall, he actually had crossed the Hudson weeks before the inauguration. A house had been prepared for him, in which he would clearly have spent much time with his officers and key civilians planning every detail of his inauguration. He was also a religious man, not in the mold of Thomas Jefferson, who took a pair of scissors to the New Testament in order to expunge the miracles, but a traditional Anglican Protestant, whose household contained a Bible, which was read every day, and we know he traveled throughout his campaigns with a good book beside him. With all this time to plan, there is no doubt in my mind that the Bible was always an integral part of the ceremony. So my interpretation is quite different to the traditional view. At the time of the inauguration, New York was then, as now, a melting pot of nationalities and religious backgrounds. Both residents of New York and the many spectators were inheritors of diverse Christian beliefs for which they had been persecuted in their homelands. How could they use a Bible without the church from which it had come, proclaiming that its form of Christianity had been adopted as the official religion of the United States? Freemasonry was very highly regarded in the colonies at the time. This was decades prior to the Morgan affair. By using a Masonic Bible, a noble order was being represented, but more importantly, it could be claimed that this Bible had never seen service in a church, and was therefore clear of any denominational issues. General Jacob Morton was a friend of Washington, and his lodge was nearby. I have no doubt that the Bible was collected days before the ceremony, and that Chancellor Livingston did not turn down the page corner after all, but rather before the event, so he would know where to open it. But this would mean that the passage used was not random, but very carefully selected. This is borne out by the fact that the passage used, Genesis chapter 49, is near the very front of the Bible. Most persons would open a book at random in the middle. In Genesis chapter 49, Jacob calls his 12 sons to bless them. That makes 1 plus 12, or 13 people. At the time, there were 13 colonies, and New York was the Empire State, New York City, that then being the capital of the new country. Jacob blesses his sons, and Washington blesses the colonies. If we accept that Washington was a devout man who knew his Bible, and that the passage was selected most carefully indeed prior to the inauguration, what could be a more appropriate and uplifting passage to be used at the founding of this brave new world? Alright, next I'd like to mention our apps and sponsors. Of course, we have an Apple app and an Android app which give you streaming access, with also bonus features which are not available in other fashions of streaming the show. All money that we get from the app sales goes right back into the show. If you want to help out, but you want to do it in a free way, then you can download the Stitcher Smart Radio program, register for free, and use the promo code Whence with no spaces. They know whose show got you to download their program, and what's cool is that they decide to send us $1 every time you guys put in the code Whence when you register. If you want to support the show but are not into apps, there is a donation button, and it's run through PayPal, and it's all secure, and that's on our website at www.wcypodcast.com. I also want to mention our affiliate On It Labs. Visit our website, wcypodcast.com. Click the links to go to On It Labs. Anything you buy remains unmarked up, but also what's cool is that they send a bit of the sale back to the show. You get a great product, whether that's Alpha Brain, which improves your focus, and is actually what I use on a daily basis, or New Mood, which I just tried thanks to Brother Shimeon over at the Brothers in Arms blog, and that stuff is pretty good too. I get some good sleep without taking anything like melatonin or anything like that. Anyway, if you head over there through our site, that's how they know who to support, and if you can, remember to use the promo code WCY at checkout for an additional 10% off your order. Now, I don't see anything bonus from you guys using the coupon code. That's just a way that you guys get a little discount, and what it does is it usually covers the shipping and maybe a bit more depending on how much you're spending there. So please check those guys out as well. And now I'd like to continue this segment from last week about our Midnight Freemason contributors. This week I wanted to tell you about Right Worshipful Brother Michael H. Shirley, who is an Assistant Area Deputy Grand Master for the Eastern Area of the Grand Lodge of Illinois, AF&AM. He is the Past Master of Tuscola Lodge number 332 and Leadership Development Chairman for the Grand Lodge of Illinois. He's also a member of the Illinois Lodge of Research, the Scottish Rite, the York Rite, Eastern Star, and the Tall Cedars of Lebanon. He also is a member of the newly chartered Illini High 12, number 768 in Urbana-Champaign. He is the author of several articles on British history. He teaches at Eastern Illinois University. Also, he and the founder of the Midnight Freemasons, Todd E. Creason, are good buddies. Mike's posts are always super informative and focus on the wisdom of some of our well-known brothers of the craft, as well as many other topics. So again, you can see and read all his pieces on www.midnightfreemason.blogspot.com, and that is indeed where you can read 3 new articles every single week. Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And it takes a lot of writing and talent and planning to have 206 articles a year. So show some love and head on over to the Midnight Freemasons Facebook page or the blog and give us a like. Share the articles when you read them, and if you'd like, become a part. I'm always looking for great articles by brothers of the craft or sisters as well. If you have something that you think would make a good piece, send it over and we can post it. The credit will be noted, and also it will be given to you. We do not own the rights to the work or anything like that. It is always your writing. We're just posting it for you in a somewhat popular medium, so you get a good audience. So if you have something, get in touch with me and email me at wcypodcast@gmail.com. Next, we're going to get right into this week's famous Freemason. So this guy was born the 24th of June in 1884. Frederick Wellington Taylor began playing hockey at the age of 12, going on to be inducted into Hockey's Hall of Fame in 1947 after playing 2 Stanley Cup championship games in 1909 and 1915, and scoring 205 goals over a 21-year career between 1902 and 1923. And I don't have to tell you, if you guys watch any kind of hockey today, what are the scores? 3-1? They're low-scoring games. Scoring 205 goals in 21 years is quite an accomplishment. During his professional hockey career, he was employed by the Immigration Department. He eventually retired as Commissioner of the Immigration for British Columbia and the Yukon Territories. An active member of the Vancouver community, he was president of the Pacific Coast Hockey League in 1937, and he helped form the British Columbia Hockey Benevolent Society, where he served as director from 1954 until his death in 1979. He was initiated in Civil Service Lodge number 148 in Ottawa, raised to the sublime degree of a Master Mason on August 27, 1913, and in November of 1913, he was affiliated with Plantagenet Lodge number 65. Alright, that's it for this week. Remember to follow us on Twitter at Whence. Find us on Facebook as well. We're also on every other facet of social media, including Tumblr, Pinterest, MySpace, etc. Check out the apps, Stitcher Smart Radio, The Winding Stairs, Far From Centered, and of course, the Midnight Freemasons. Stay on the level, and for Whence, I'm Robert Johnson.